Okay, George, so we're out here today for the announcement for Nikita and Koen. So it is going to be in Sydney. Overall thoughts on the fight?
I'm excited about the fight. I think it's a really good matchup, a great domestic matchup. A fight that could bring the absolute best out of Nikita Tszyu and Koen Mazoudier. Koen always pushes fights to the absolute limit, and he seems to bring the best out of his opponents. So it could be a really entertaining fight. Could be a fight of the year contender.
Do you think there's any risks with Nikita fighting against Koen?
Massive risk, massive risk. You know, we see Koen. Any fight that he hasn't won, he's pushed it to the absolute end. You know, he's a guy. He's an absolute warrior when he gets into the ring. He's a guy who he brings the best out of his opponents, and you have to be the best version of yourself to beat Koen Mazoudier. And that's why I think that is a huge risk for Nikita. It's one of his toughest fights to date, without a doubt, and one that we might get to see the best version of Nikita, and that's exciting too. You know, we get to see, what this extra work that Nikita's done for this fight is going to look like. And, I think Koen really stepped it up in his last fight. He showed that he's improving yet again and getting back to that world-rated level. And that's where Nikita's headed for as well. That's where Nikita wants to go. So this is a good matchup.
Do you think people are underestimating Koen in this fight?
I think if anyone thinks that this is an easy fight for Nikita, they're underestimating Koen. Koen is one of our best guys in the country at that weight. You know, he was in the top 10 in the world 12 months ago. You know, he's a guy who's very capable. He's a guy who can beat anyone who takes a shortcut against him, and it's a really dangerous fight for Nikita. So you cannot underestimate Koen.
100%. The undercard is set to feature Michael Zerafa versus Tommy Brown. There has been plenty of criticism about this fight. What do you make of it?
Well, Michael's coming off a loss. He wants to get back in the ring. He wants to get active again. Tommy Brown's in his hometown. He'll have a huge support base here, and everybody will be cheering against Zerafa here in Sydney. So it's a tough fight for him. He's going to be absolutely tested, and if he can get through this test, then it shows that he's still ready to have another shot at his world-rated career.
Has Michael Zerafa signed a deal with you guys?
We haven't got anything signed yet at the moment. So he's signed on for this fight. Michael Zerafa is signed to take this fight. So he's looking at resurrecting his career and making another shot for it. He believes that he's still one of the best fighters in the country and wants to show everyone. So, if that's the case, we've got a lot of guys around that super welterweight, that middleweight division who can get in the ring with him and make for some really entertaining fights. If he's still at that top level, it'll make for great fights. So if he wants to fight and showcase what he can do, he'd have to do it here with no limit.
Zerafa called Sebastian Fundora a prospect. What do you make of that?
Look, Fundora is one of the most dangerous guys in the division. He's a guy that needs to be respected, and he has been respected by everyone throughout his whole career. So he's a world champion. Like you can't disrespect a world champion. Sebastian Fundora is a very good fighter.
For sure. I just want to touch base on Tszyu. So, of course, we've had a bit of an upset with the fallout with Lubin. What are his next negotiations for his next upcoming fights?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of talk happening for Tim's next fight, and we're very close to finalising that and announcing something really soon. It's a great result for Tim, and it's a shame that it's not the Lubin fight. I really like the Lubin fight. I think that he's still a guy that'll stay on that list. We'd love to fight Lubin at some stage, and this next fight for Tim will be announced, and everybody will be very happy with the outcome for it, and we get to see Tim Tszyu back in the ring. It's always a win for Australia.
How important as well is for Tim to become a world champion again?
I think it's really important, given the opportunities that exist for him at the moment in that division. We've got Terence Crawford, we've got Madrimov, we've got Myrtolaev, we've got Fundora, we've got Spence, we've got Charlo's just said that he's coming back. So there's great fights there for Tim to have, and when you've got the belt, it gives him an excuse to risk taking a loss to Tim Tszyu and stepping in the ring, because right now he's the best guy in the division who hasn't got a piece of gold for them to step in the ring for. It's just a risk for everyone to take that fight.
100%. I just want to quickly touch base on Harry Garside as well. A disappointment last night. What do you make of it, and will you look to promote him once again if he decides to return back as a pro?
Yeah, look, we're absolutely shattered for Harry. I know how much effort he put into that fight, into that camp, into this whole period leading up to the Olympics. He really wanted this. We really wanted it for him. I think everybody in Australia wanted it for him. I think he's a guy that everybody in Australia loves to get behind. He's a really likeable guy. So for us, we were shattered for him to see the result. Very awkward fight. I think, it was a really tough fight and a hard fight to watch. The guy was pissing me off watching him. I wanted Harry to absolutely smoke him, but it was a really awkward fight, a very tough fight for anybody who steps in with him. So shattered for Harry, but he's going to have a huge future no matter what he tries to do after this, what he chooses to do. If he chooses to take up his professional boxing career again, we're arms wide open. He is still signed with no limit, and I think that he'd still be able to make a really good impact in the sport of boxing by going pro and fighting for a world title one day. I think that'd be a great goal for him to set himself, and no limit's the best place for him to do it.
100%. Terence Crawford fight this weekend. Thoughts on that fight?
Great fight. I think for Terence, he's a pound-for-pound king. For him to step in the ring against Madrimov, I think that's a really good test for him to see just how good he can be at 154. I think Madrimov's a very strong guy. It's a fight that I think that Terence Crawford will win convincingly, and he should win convincingly. But look, we'll get to see how he handles the weight. It is a big step up. You're stepping up into a heavier division. Regardless of the talent, it's a big step up. So we'll be watching it very closely to see how Crawford goes, and we'd love to fight him in the future. So it's one that we'll watch really closely.
One last question. UFC 305 is coming to Perth. I just want to know who you are backing on this fight.
Look, I'd love to see Izzy get some redemption on that one. I'd really like to see him get a good result. He's been such a great fighter over the past years, a great champion, defended so many times, and I like his attitude towards fighting. I like the way that he carries himself in the octagon, and he's a New Zealander. We claim New Zealanders when they're champions. They're Australasians, so they're part of our circle. So I'd love to see him get the win. Nikita, Tszyu and Koen Mazoudier. Obviously, we announced this venue yesterday and today. Tickets are on sale today, so a big moment for us, a huge fight for Australian boxing, a great domestic fight, great matchup, one that's been in the works for a very, very long time. And I'm excited that we are getting it on here at such a great venue here in Sydney.
Why Sydney?
Look, it's been something that we've been working on for a number of months. Obviously, there's been a lot around the Tszyu fight about where it's going to be and where we're going to have it, and so we had to wait for that before we made a decision, and we just came to the point where we're ready to do it. The venue's available. It's a perfect venue for a fight like this. We'll have a great crowd here in Sydney too, great Sydney fighters who will draw very well here, and I think it'll make for a really good night. That's probably a big reason why we've ended up here.
Koen's obviously been around a long time, mate. Experienced campaigner. He's going to ask a lot of questions in Nikita, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. And Koen's style, he's made for Nikita Tszyu. We see Nikita does often get caught. Koen's a guy who pushes through big rounds. You don't see Koen falling early in any of his fights. He's a guy who pushes a pace, who sticks around. He's a very classy boxer, very good boxer, and everybody that he's been in with, it's always been a close fight. Win, lose or draw, it has always been a close fight. So it's absolutely going to test Nikita, and this is what Nikita wants. Nikita wants to keep growing. He became the Australian champion. He wants to keep growing. He's fighting a guy who, this time last year was ranked top 10 in the world. So it's a great step up for Nikita and a great matchup, and one that I think that the fans will really enjoy this fight. I think they're two guys who will match it up really well and really give us some excitement on the night. So there might be some nerves from us ringside, but it'll be a very exciting fight either way.
Koen's a guy that's been in deep water a couple of times and survived the test. I remember the Wade Ryan fight. This is a guy that doesn't really know how to quit. Nikita has made a lot of guys quit.
Yeah.
Do you think this will be an old-fashioned war in a lot of ways? Because Koen quite likes one, even though he's probably better suited to boxing, but he doesn't mind having one.
Absolutely, and I think Nikita's a guy who jokes around about how he loves the blood, he loves the warfare. I think he's absolutely going to get it in this fight. I think Koen's a guy who's going to really push that out of him. And for Nikita to get the win in this fight, we're going to have to see, his full arsenal. We're going to have to see what Nikita has on offer to be able to get a win against Koen, because Koen is no pushover.
Nikita's obviously over in the US right now, getting some very, very quality sparring in. We've seen what that's done for Tim in the past, where he's ripped through US fighters over there and gone to another level. And this is really the first time Nikita's had the chance to do that. What do you think he'll benefit from?
Look, I think the quality of sparring that you get over there is unmatched. Here we've got a lot of great guys in the super welterweight division here in Australia, but they're also guys that are going to be your opponent in the next 12 months. So to get good sparring here and to be able to advance, it makes it very difficult. You can't spar against the guys that you want to fight. And Nikita wants to fight absolutely anyone who's on offer here in Australia. So Koen's a guy who would have been great sparring for him in the past, but he's a guy that he also wants to fight. So that's the situation that he's in. And by going over to the States, you get to level up. You get to fight some of the best guys in the country, and they've got a much bigger population base than we have here in Australia. So there's guys lining up, begging for opportunities over there, and they're guys that are hungry, that can fight, who will take Nikita's game to the next level. And what we'll see from Nikita here on August 28th is we could see Nikita stepping up to another level. And that's scary to think, because we've already been really impressed by what he's offered so far.
You guys have obviously signed Michael Zerafa. Do you see a world in which he fights Nikita pretty soon? I mean, Nick had a few choice words to say recently.
I think it's very hard to come back from a big loss. We'll see what Michael Zerafa has coming back off that loss. Fighting for a world title at the absolute peak of the sport. So he's got a guy in front of him in Tommy Brown who, this is his backyard. He's a Sydney guy. He gets people turn up for Tommy Brown, and it's going to be a very, very tough experience for Michael here on August 28th. So a big test for Zerafa. We won't know what's next for him until we see how good he is on that date.
Is that something, I don't know, Team Tszyu has sort of spoken about as well, the potential of a Michael Zerafa fight in the future?
Look, I think the bad blood that existed between the Tszyu and Zerafa, it'll never go away. Things were said during that build-up that, I think somebody wanted retribution for it, whether that's Tim, whether that's Nikita, whether it's anybody in the family. I think there's retribution there that's wanted from the family at some stage. So if it happens, I think it'll be great. I think it'll be a great fight for Australian boxing. I think it'll be an exciting one. No matter who ends up getting that opportunity, I think both of the Tszyu have shown their level here in Australian boxing, and even for Nikita, moving on to that global level as well. So I know, though, for a fact that Nikita definitely isn't looking past this fight. This is the toughest fight of his career.
If Zerafa gets past Tommy Brown convincingly, is that the next fight, or you want to see a bit more of it?
Look, if Zerafa makes a statement and he lets everyone know that he's back, that he's still, one of the best in the country, then we've got to give him a good fight. We've got to put him in there. We want to see good fights. We want to see tough fights. So we'll definitely be making a very exciting fight for him next if he can put on a good show.
What about Timmy's? Was obviously supposed to fight Leuven at one point. That's fallen over for like the third time. Is there a chance that the next fight's for the IBF belt?
Look, anything's possible, but nothing's confirmed until it's locked in and it's announced, and people are here on our shores. So I'll never jump the gun on that, but there is a lot happening in the background at the moment, and we're looking forward to announcing something very exciting for Tim Tszyu in the very near future.
Sounds like you're working on another big one then, Georgie.
It's always a big one. Whenever Tim Tszyu fights, it's a big one. So, a Tim Tszyu show, if we get it here in Australia, mate, it's amazing. It's always the best shows that we do. So, Tim Tszyu here in Australia will be a great fight, and when his opponent's announced, you'll be very excited, Cody.
How is he at the moment? Because, I mean, this is a guy that's so used to being active, has missed out on a number of big fights, and is now over in the US sparring and, from all accounts, destroying the guys that he is sparring. Are we going to see a new level of Tim and a guy that wants to make up for the Fundora loss?
We always see Tim grow with every fight that he has, and believe it or not, he actually gets better with every fight. I still think that he's the best in the division by far, and the fact that he's going to get better and keep getting better, it's exciting, because who knows where the ceiling is for Tim Tszyu. I don't think there's a ceiling for Tim Tszyu. I think that he'll get through absolutely everyone who steps in front of him. The Fundora fight was it was an anomaly that did I even spit that out right there?
An anomaly.
No. You know what I'm saying. It was a fight. It's something that we never expected, and something that you know, had it happened to absolutely anyone, you know, the same outcome happens. The fact that he still lost by 1 round in a fight where he couldn't see anything, you know, it shows the level that he's at. But put that in the past. That's absolutely in the past, and what lies ahead for him are great fights.
Is Fundora in the past?
No, well, that fight's in the past, but he's definitely not. No, he's definitely on the list. Yeah, absolutely everyone's on the list, and there's a great list of names. We just saw Charlo announce that he's back and that he wants to be the king of the 154-pound division again. So that's exciting for us, because it's a fight that we've wanted since he ruined our Christmas a few years ago. So we're looking forward to that. Tim's looking forward to that. There's great fights ahead for him, and also for these guys that sit in that division right now. Nikita and Koen sit in that division, so they continue to grow, they continue to level up, and they'll also be in the realms of fighting these guys as well in the coming years.
You guys in that division fighting this weekend in LA on a card that Tim was supposed to be on. What do you make of some of those fights, Crawford, Mazoudier, are those guys in the mix down the line?
Yeah, look, I'm really interested in that fight. Crawford coming up, you know, when you come up in weight, you've got to hit your limit eventually. I'm interested to see how he handles coming up to 154, because they're very big boys. You know, Crawford's come a long way to get up there. Don't get me wrong, pound for pound, great. And no disrespect to him in that regard. I think that, you know, that he's a brilliant boxer and that he should win this fight. But Mazoudier is a very strong super welterweight, and Mazoudier a guy who will test whether he can handle that size. Whether he can handle that weight. So I'm expecting Crawford to get the win there, and I'm expecting Tim to fight Crawford in the future.
Is that just on Tim's next fight, is that September date in Australia, that's still locked in? That's what you're working towards?
That's what we're working towards, yep.
A word on Harry Garside, mate, a guy you've worked closely with in the past, very heartbroken, said he was a failure after being knocked out of the Olympics in the opening round, and sacrificed a very lucrative professional career to go and pursue that Olympic dream.
Look, Harry's not a failure by any regard. He put everything on the line. He put all of his heart and soul into that effort to be ready for that fight. Very tough, very awkward fight, and has not lost a single supporter in what he did. He chased greatness. Unfortunately, he didn't achieve that over there in Paris, but he's still an amazing fighter. He's still an amazing person, and there's a big future still for him, no matter what he chooses to do. He's a guy that Australians love.
Do you expect to see him back in the pros pretty soon?
I'd love to see him in the pros. I think he's a guy that people, you know, love and want to support, and regardless of his performance over there, I think he'd still have a great professional career in front of him. So whatever he chooses to do, you know, we'll be supportive of him. We've loved working with him in the past, and I know that he'll be great in the future.
What about the super heavyweight, Tszyu? Very impressive, and I imagine No Limit sitting there going, "Ooh, we might add you to the stable."
You know, I like heavyweights. You know, I'm a big boy. I like big boys. So it was great to see him get a win, and I really want to see our Australian boxing contingent go really well over there in Paris. I think we've got a lot of talent in that squad, and I think there's guys that can still win medals. You know, Harry's obviously one of the biggest names of that team. And so everybody was watching his journey closely, but there's still a lot of talent in that team, and I think there's guys there that can, guys and girls obviously, but that can win gold. And I think, you know, some of our female boxers there, I think they'll be really pushing for gold. And I think, you know, Tszyu performance, he shows that he's got the power to change a fight. And you absolutely love seeing that.
Sweet. Thanks, Georgie.